Well, people, it's been a while, and there's a ton of shit going on. So, the first one I want to get out of the way, it hurts my head to think about it. A guy was convicted of, I don't know, raping a 4-year-old girl back in 1997. And he kept appealing and kept appealing and kept appealing. And his last argument was, well, you can't keep me in prison because officially half of Oklahoma is still Indian reservation. And the Supreme Court sided with the child rapist. So, to summarize, the Supreme Court said, this doesn't change land ownership. Bullshit. Um, it also doesn't change a whole lot of. It changes everything. These morons have no idea what the hell they just did. Because basically said that any native person who commits a crime within the eastern half of Oklahoma can only be charged by the federal government and not by the state or local governments who are there, which also means that, yeah, those courts have absolutely no power over the people who live in that area. And what happens when these people, the natives or the white people who currently live there, say, "Yeah, I was already fed up with the taxes that you have us pay year in and year out, and I'm not doing that anymore because this is technically native land. What are you gonna do?" So, according to the policies that go along with these reservations, the Native Americans get to create their own police force. They get to enforce their own laws. They could technically charge taxes if they wanted to. Oh, this is what happens when political correctness or social justice warriors when the cult takes over. So now we're going to move on to this. So yeah, my city is removing a memorial who that was put up for Eric Zapata, who was 35 years old when he died back in 2011. Uh, and I remember that day probably better than 9/11. So, this was back when I was working at the hospital. I was in the ER. Uh, I had just clocked out, so it would have been 11:30 at night. It was less than a mile to walk home, and at that time I hadn't gotten a raise in like 3, 4 years. Thanks, Bushonomics. So as I was walking home, several police vehicles flew past me on Portage Road. Lights and sirens are on. We're talking sheriff's department, township, Kalamazoo City. I even saw a state police car fly past. Kalamazoo is not a high priority for state police, so unless they just happen to be in the area, like the odds of state police showing up to a call are like close to zero. But I get to my street, I look down the street, and there are red and blue lights everywhere. Uh, I had no idea what was going on, and my first thought was, well, the local crackheads, they finally did it. They finally burned down my fucking house. So I get to my house, it's still standing. I put the key in the door and I turn around, and there's this big, tall, black police officer running up to his vehicle, and he opens the door and he pulls a shotgun out and he starts loading it right there. And I'm thinking, like, what the is going on? where, where this guy is running to get a bigger gun. So I'm standing there. I don't know if I should go in the house or not, because what if there's somebody in the house hiding from the cops? I have no idea. I haven't been home all day. I have no idea what the hell's going on. And the cop looks at me and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "Just wondering what's happening." And he says, "Officer down, suspect still on the loose." And so I was like, "All right, I'm going inside." And he's like, "Thank you very much." Racks the gun, runs back down the street, and I was like, at that time I was already fed up with the neighborhood and the amount of crime and bullshit that I had already put up with. And yeah, so the next morning I find out Zapata had been killed in the line of duty, about a block and a half away from my house. So the call that went out was shots fired on Hayes Park, which is the street right next to mine. And the first officer to pull up on the scene had some gunfire coming in his direction. He returned fire. Zapata pulls up, and one of the two guys who's at this house jumps off the porch and runs behind the house trying to get away. So Zapata chases chases after him, and as he reaches the back of the house, takes a shot to the face. And they don't know if he was killed instantly or not. Uh, the official story afterwards is that the suspect then turns the gun on himself and ends his own life. Which, why do you have to take somebody else with you? But whatever, that's like a whole nother discussion. So, this is sometime between 11:30 and midnight, and the third shift crew in the ER had just come in. And many of these nurses are married to cops. I would say almost roughly half of the nurses on that shift are probably married to cops. So they get the call over the radio, officer down, GSW. Uh, right away, most of the staff is like in a panic because they didn't hear whether it was county or township or city or state. They have no idea what's coming in or who's coming in. So they're prepping the trauma room, and Zapata comes in. The other thing is that nobody knows who he is because they tried resuscitating him on the scene, which meant that the top part of his uniform came off, so there was no name badge or anything. Then, then you throw in the fact that his face was unrecognizable. And you have staff who's working on this guy who a lot of them are thinking it's their significant other who's sitting there on the cart. Some of them are glad because they realize, oh, this is city, this isn't whatever my husband works for. So they're thinking, like, thank God it's not my husband. And then they also had to deal with the guilt of that as well later on. The shift that worked when Zapata came in, everyone on that shift had to go to counseling afterwards. So, yeah, a 35-year-old guy lost his life protecting the city, his community. He's also of Mexican descent, so he's a minority. And his memorial was vandalized to the point where the city and the police department decided that it should just be moved and no longer on public display. And yeah, my only response to that is we don't negotiate with terrorists. So that is where we're at. 9 years after this police officer lost his life, no longer going to have memorials downtown for him. The bronze bust that was on display is no longer there. And yeah, so the city just forgets that this guy ever fucking existed. So yeah, I'm pissed. It was an event that affected me, affected people that I knew, that I worked with. It was in my neighborhood, affected my community, um, changed my life because less than a week later, I went out and bought my first shotgun because I thought to myself, if these people are killing cops in the streets, what's to stop them from thinking, having a second thought of killing me if they break into my house? And that was where my decision on gun ownership completely changed after that. So, yeah, this was a big event. This was something that affected the city as a whole. And, oh, yeah, 2019, the last time that the memorial was vandalized and somebody had pushed um, the memorial over, damaging it, it was some dipshit from fucking Grand Rapids. If you have to go to another city in order to push your agenda, you should probably just go fuck yourself and leave other people alone. Don't try your bullshit here. Last time I checked, he was still in jail, and I'm glad. I hope they keep him there. And this shit needs to stop. And I could end up going on a whole other rant, but yeah. Uh, Sounds like somebody is hungry, and I just wanted to make this quick video. And yeah, those are the two biggest news articles I could think to cover when there's like dozens of others that are just tons of shit. It's all shit. The whole country is going to shit. And man, I I can't wait for 2020 to be over with. Can the aliens just show up already? Aliens, Ghost, Bigfoot. Bigfoot would be awesome. Could Bigfoot just appear by by now? Anything would be better than like this stupid social justice warrior, social fucking policy of racist discrimination against everybody except for people who aren't even asking for this shit. I can't I can't tell you how many black people I've talked to that are just like, I have no idea what the fuck these people are talking about. Terry Crews fucking just bashed Don Lemon in the face with his hypocritical bullshit. And then everybody's going after Terry Crews. Terry Crews seems to be a pretty fucking cool guy. Leave him alone. And maybe you should be listening to what the fuck this guy has to say because he's actually accomplished something with his life. God, I'm getting pissed. So yeah, fuck Black Lives Matter and their Marxist agenda, family destruction bullshit. I have absolutely no regrets for being a white man. Like, my skin color has anything to do with my life. And these people overall can just go fuck themselves. Keep on typing.